It is 7 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk. Hello, everybody. It is Monday, the 19th day of February, President's Day, all day long. And we're going to give you news and information you can use. And we need to say congratulations to Mac and Hannah. Boy, I am so excited, guys. I mean, word was leaked to me after you left on Friday.
Oh, okay.
That something, this was probably going to be the weekend. And so, I was sort of waiting. And then I waited until Sunday, and then you sent me pictures and all that. And I just so happy for you.
Thank you, man.
I think, listen, I'm all in favor of marriage. I've done it a lot. I just recommend one, though.
Okay, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
Stick with the one.
Yeah, just go with one. That's the best way. It will protect your what do you call it?
My wallet.
Your wallet for sure. Yeah, I mean, your bank account. That's for sure. Those other things are really, really expensive. But anyway, I'm very happy for you.
Thank
I truly, truly am, and I want to hear the story. Maybe we'll do, and instead of Mac Maury's Wide World of Sports, how Mac Maury asked Hannah to marry him.
Mac Maury's Matrimony Monday. Let's do it.
Oh,
nice.
Yeah, that was quick.
This, huh?
All right, so no sports today.
Got it.
5:25.
Love it.
Will you can tell the story. Now I have to pick up because I am. I was just listening with rapt attention, wondering whether or not Matt Murphy was going to slug this guy in front of him at the Cowboy hat. and I got to tell you, I mean, I there's a part of me that has great sympathy for the guy in the cowboy hat. In that, I'm 6'4", and I always feel horrible about going in and sitting down in my assigned seat, understanding that if there's a short person behind me, just through the luck of the draw, that person is going to have a miserable night. And I there's nothing I can do about being 6'4". So what I usually do is I slump. I'll slump down because I feel that bad about it. What I think the way that I've gotten around it is I'll get there first. I'll try to get there early so that I establish that, there's a tall guy here, and if you want to make the adjustments as you come in.
You may want to go somewhere else.
You might, or, you might want to slide over or swap or do something. I would, honestly, I do feel bad about it because, you paid to see a show, right? And now there's this guy with a cowboy hat. Well, first of all, the cowboy hat guy was rude. Should never have had the hat on inside. You take it off. Gentlemen, if he was a gentleman, you take off the hat. So, but I've had mixed results in having conversations of this nature. I went to a Fleetwood Mac concert and damn near got my ass kicked. I'm telling you.
Whoa.
Wow.
I mean, it was ugly. And there was a guy behind us, in this case, guy behind us with a bunch of people. And it was clear that he was like the big dog of the group, right? And there was about 8 other people behind us, and he was the most arrogant jackass I've ever been around. I mean, I don't know if he'd been drinking or what, but it was Fleetwood Mac. All of Fleetwood Mac was there. It was like, this was the one where Christy McVie came back, and I had never seen them, and these tickets that I paid for, they were in the nosebleed section, but they were expensive. Yeah. I'm telling you, they were really expensive. And I was there with a date, and this guy, I don't know, he's bad-mouthing everything that's going on in a very loud and obnoxious way. I mean, he's making fun of the show. He's got a running commentary that was just ugly and profane. And just, I mean, this guy was, the worst jerk I've ever been around. And I'm sitting there going, this is really ruining my experience. And I was really wanting to enjoy the show. And I sat there, and I sat there, and I sat there. And I finally stood up between a couple of the songs and just read the guy the riot act. There may have been some ugly words said.
Nice.
I unloaded on the guy. Just like, what kind of guy, jackass are you trying to be here today? You're ruining the experience for me and all of the people around me. So would you please just shut the you-know-what up?
Mm-hmm.
And then I sat back down and waited for him to, pound me. and there was silence, just absolute. I really unloaded on the guy, and it's not like me to do that, but I did.
You'd had all you could take.
I mean, it really
I've
had
been
just
there.
put, and not just me. It was everybody was feeling the same way around me, except for his people, who seemed to be, sort of, unafraid, unwilling to say what should have been said to him. Hey, calm down a little bit. And then they weren't willing to do that, so I assumed he was like the big dog of the group. And there was silence. And he said, "We're leaving." And he got up,
What?
and all 8 of them left.
Wow.
And this
Oh,
woman
my
who went
gosh.
by and said, "I hope you're happy. You've ruined this experience for me." I said, "He ruined the experience for everybody within the sound of his voice." So, I don't want to hear it. Well, anyway, I now I'm wondering, is there gonna be a blowback? Is the usher gonna come and escort me from the whatever? I don't know what's gonna happen. But somebody went out to get popcorn and came back and get some side of snack, and they said, "Those dudes are waiting out there for you."
Really?
Those dudes
Whoa.
are angry, and they're waiting on you to come out. They're going to wait through the entire show if they have to, because they're. I heard them talking, and so I'm going, uh-oh. Well, what do I do? Well, I had purchased a Fleetwood Mac T-shirt, and I wasn't wearing it, but I had purchased it. So I changed shirts. And he was looking for somebody in a certain color of shirt, and I'm like, and I was wearing a Fleetwood Mac, and I went right past him. That's the way I avoided the conflict.
Nice.
Yeah, I know, but I was thinking, man, this is the last thing because a couple of those guys were pretty good size. I could probably handle my own with one guy,
Yeah.
but if you got 2 or 3 waiting there to pound you,
Yeah.
then I maybe I should have called and asked for a police escort. I don't know. But anyway, long story short, I do understand how these things can spiral out of control. And I don't know what you do about it other than nicely ask.
Yeah. And sometimes even that's going to start something. It just depends on the attitude of the person that you're asking.
I know. And, and there are jerks in this world.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've always found if you say, hey, sort of de-escalate. Unlike what I did with the guy at the Fleetwood Mac concert. Hey, could you help me out there, buddy? We paid a lot of money, and we're real big fans, but we can't see a thing. I know you don't intend to do that, but I just wondered, could you take the hat off because we're having a hard time seeing the show? And I've been behind, people where you go, you have to, every time they move, you got to move so you can see. And the Ryman is, there's not a lot of rise.
No, it's pretty flat
in the seats.
Yeah.
The last time, not the last time, but the time before when I went to the Ryman, I love the Ryman. I broke a church pew.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I sat down, I kind of plopped down. And when I plop down, it's a pretty good plop. And all of a sudden I hear this crack. And Cabana wife looked at me and said, "What did you do?" And so
you destroyed what is it? A historical?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a historic building, and these these pews have been there forever. But I cracked one, and then so the whole rest of the show, I had to sort of lean on my right cheek. Because if I went on my left cheek, I was afraid it was going to
on the floor.
Would just crack, and I'd be on the floor. That was a horrible thing. But anyway, I don't know. What do you do when a guy like that?
Yeah, it's tough. I had an experience. Well, last summer when we went to the George Strait Chris Stapleton show at Nissan Stadium.
Great show.
It's a sea of cowboy hats. There's probably 2/3 of the people there. We're we have field tickets, so we're on a flat surface. We're standing on the football field. It was awful. Because there were so many cowboy hats. It was a constant, like you were saying, you're dodging left, dodging right every time someone moves, just so you can try to get an eyeball at the stage. And, there's just really nothing you can do in a situation like that. But I've been in scenarios in those tight places, kind of like the Ryman as well, where someone is, either large or they have some sort of wild something on their head or whatever. And it's annoying for sure.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a delicate thing because, it doesn't take much to irritate some people.
Yeah.
And
some people do it maybe looking for someone to say something to them so that they can then start something.
Yeah. And if he was with a date that he's never going to back down.
That's true.
I mean, and unless he was approached, I think really gingerly. Strike up a conversation. Hey, man, let me tell you. Tell me about that hat. That's a great looking hat.
Would you
now,
mind
can you
not
take it
putting
off, please? Now, would you take it off, please? I mean, I love the hat, man, but I mean, I can't see. I like being up in the balcony there. I think,
that's
I think
nice too.
I mean, there's no bad seats at the Ryman, except, that, it doesn't have a lot of rise.
Yeah. Well, there are a couple that you basically have a pole right in front of you. Those aren't great.
I know. I haven't ever gotten one, but I've seen them. I know what you're talking about there. Best way to see the show at the Ryman, backstage, my friend.
Wow,
backstage. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. All right. Well, I was going to get into a whole segment here, but I'm going to break early. Come back. I want to talk about some things going on here in Nashville. That really trouble me. 2 or 3 things, including apparently we had Nazis over the weekend. We'll talk about that in just a moment. It's 18 minutes past the hour now, 3 o'clock. The chairman of the Federal Reserve said that we are on an unsustainable fiscal path. We aren't going to pay off the $34 trillion debt anytime soon. They'll just print more money to pay the interest on the debt, and then that will debase the U.S. dollar. What you want to do here to avoid, having your dollar lose value is to save with gold and other precious metals. I mean, maybe you've thought about adding gold or other precious metals to your portfolio, but you feel like you don't have the knowledge you need to make a smart decision. Well, that's the way I felt. But I got professional guidance from Nashville Gold and Coin. The way it works is you make an appointment, then you go and sit down one-on-one, and they will answer your questions. They will help you make a precious metals investment that is right for you. It's friendly. You're going to learn a ton, and you will never be subjected to a high-pressure sales pitch. Gold and silver can be a safe haven during uncertain economic times. And my friends at Nashville Gold and Coin are standing by to answer all your questions about the precious metals market. To set up that one-on-one appointment, just go to NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. That's NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
Donald Trump looking like he is way ahead of Nikki Haley in these new polls. Sexual abuse in Tennessee and an arrest made after a dorm murder in Colorado. Those stories 30 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock right here. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
22, almost 23 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. A couple of stories that caught my eye about things happening here in Nashville, and this irritates me. This irritates me a great deal. From WKRN, a 19-year-old who was free on bond while awaiting trial for two, not one, but two separate murder cases, is back in jail following a Friday evening shooting at Mill Ridge Park that left a man injured. Metro Nashville Police Department said Oswaldo Corrado, 19, was identified as the person who shot a 23-year-old acquaintance in the hand at Old Hickory Boulevard Park and then pointed a gun at the man's cousin on February 16th. Citing Corrado's perceived continuing danger to the community, officials said detectives from several MNPD components, including the Specialized Investigations Division and the SWAT folks, worked to find the young man after the two aggravated assault warrants were sworn out during the early mornings of Saturday's February 15th. They coordinated with the Laverne Police Department and took Corrado into custody at a Walmart parking lot in Laverne by having SWAT officers perform a vehicle jam. He was brought to the downtown detention center, booked with the judicial commissioner, setting a bond of $150,000. But what in the world was this guy doing out on the street if he was already charged with two other murder cases? According to authorities, he was arrested on December 16th, 2020, at the age of 16 and charged with criminal homicide in connection with the deadly shooting of 22-year-old Lee V. Turner Jr. that day outside the Tornado bus station on Nolensville Pike. Then in 2021, he's charged with another criminal homicide in relation to the fatal shooting of 34-year-old Alexandra Presley on November 16th, 2020. He was sitting in a car outside his Weaver Drive home, police said. These two criminal homicide cases were transferred from juvenile court to criminal court, adding that Corrado was on an ankle monitor and was not found not to be around any guns as part of his bond conditions. My Lord. My Lord. He's already out on bond on two murder cases. How do you get out on bond if you've got two murder cases? And why is it taking so long to bring these cases to adjudication? This is, part of the thing I keep hearing from my friends who are police officers. And there are a great number of police officers who listen to this program. And they're always telling me, you know what? We make these arrests and they're out in a matter of moments. They're back out there. Bad people do not stay behind bars when they've committed pretty heinous crimes. Okay, I mean, if the guy had done something like, I don't know, anything else but murder, maybe you could consider the possibility, we let this person out on bond and we'll just keep a close eye on him and put an ankle monitor on, whatever. But when you've committed allegedly committed not one, but two previous homicides, seems like you're a risk to the community at that point. How in the world does this guy get out? How do we let him out? How is it that these cases go back to 2020 and it's 2023, 24 now, and these haven't been prosecuted? Somebody explain this to me. It's maddening. It's maddening. Questions? Yeah, I got questions. $150,000 bond? Not enough based on what this person has done. Now, what's the deal with the Nazis showing up in Nashville on Saturday? The story that I'm going to tell you is from WZTV channel Fox 17. About a dozen masked men carrying black Nazi flags marched for several blocks, and they were chanting and yelling anti-Semitic and anti-gay slurs. They also said derogatory things about Mexicans. The men wore black masks over their face. Metro Nashville police say some people challenged the group on Broadway before the men loaded into a box truck and left the city. We still don't know exactly who the men are or who they're with. That's just wrong. Now, I want to say that every time something like this happens, like you'll hear a story about, somebody had a swastika painted on their house. Well, over the years, as someone who has covered a lot of local news and a lot of just different kinds of news stories, you run across these things where somebody, it's legitimate. It's absolutely anti-Semitic, and then there are these ones that turn out not to be legitimate. And you have to be very careful because it can be a false flag operation, designed to just roil people up. I don't know what this is all about, but I can tell you there's no good that comes with people parading through town dressed as Nazis and carrying out this kind of stuff. And that they jumped in a box truck and departed and nobody really knows where they went. Nobody really knows who they are. Well, I say nobody really knows who they are. There is a story here in the Tennessee Star, which seems to put a little meat on the bones. A group of masked anonymous demonstrators who waved Nazi flags at the Tennessee State Capitol in Nashville on Saturday are apparently part of the same blood tribe neo-Nazi group as Kent Boneface McClellan, the American neo-Nazi who gained notoriety in 2023 after he claimed to fight alongside a Ukrainian military unit that regularly uses fascist imagery and accused of harboring neo-Nazi views. Is it real? I would like to think that it's not, but I mean, we know there were people in town that appeared to be neo-Nazis, but their faces are obscured. They've got masks on. Nobody knows who these people are, and then they come and they jump. I mean, you just have to be careful about this kind of stuff to make sure it is what it appears to be. Do we have neo-Nazis in Tennessee? God, I would hope we do not. But, but I also wonder, sometimes this thing happens to be a false flag operation carried out people who just want to inflame passions. And I'm going to take this as what it appears to be, a bunch of really messed up people who decided that they want to parade around and be jackasses and dress up like Nazis. But there's always a part of me that says there may be another side to this story. And so we'll continue to watch it. But, oh, my gosh, really? This is something we don't need in Middle Tennessee. This is not what we are. One way or the other, regardless of who's behind all this, this is not what we are in Middle Tennessee, and this needs to not happen again. I hope the police are on it. I hope they've got better intelligence than it appears that they do. But if they do, this stuff needs to be tracked down, and we need to get to the bottom of this stuff pretty quick. 30 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.331, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Sunny, 58 degrees. Weather forecast, traffic report coming up in 5 minutes. Former President Donald Trump still fending off a primary challenge from his former UN ambassador, Nikki Haley, but he's dominating in the polls and sounding more and more every day like a general election candidate rather than someone who's vying for his party's nomination. Jay O'Brien.
Former President Donald Trump's lead more than doubling Nikki Haley in South Carolina polls, according to polling averages compiled by ABC's partners at 538. South Carolina is Nikki Haley's home state. Here she is at a campaign event this weekend.
Everybody's telling me, why don't you just get out? I will never give up.
Meantime, former President Trump spent part of Saturday at SneakerCon in Philadelphia, selling $400 Trump-branded shiny gold sneakers.
Trump's visit to SneakerCon comes after a New York judge ordered him to pay an at least $450 million judgment because of fraudulent business practices. Trump's lawyer plans to appeal. Crime in Tennessee. Police arrested 69-year-old Sirocco Centeno for allegedly sexually abusing a girl over a period of 3 years. The abuse began when the girl was just 9 years old until she was 12. This was between 2006 and 2010. Centeno admitted to some of the acts during an interview with Metro Police detectives last week. He now remains in custody on a $365,000 bond. And police say they've made an arrest in connection to the fatal shootings of 2 people inside a dorm room last week at Colorado State University, Colorado Springs. Police took 25-year-old Nicholas Jordan into custody today after identifying him on Friday as a suspect. The university declared today a day of healing on campus to help students cope with the traumatic event. Moa Langhi is there with more on the investigation.
Police almost immediately determining that this appeared to have been an isolated shooting, an isolated incident, that everyone involved, the suspect and the victims, all somehow appearing to have known each other, that this was not a random attack on the school, but it's still unclear exactly how the suspect and the victims may have known each other.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
It is 38 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk. Brian Wilson in the chair on this 19th day of February. A very pleasant 67 degrees. I mean, it was cold this morning. It was down in the teens, and now we're up to well, at least in the low 20s, and now we're up at almost 70 degrees.
Really? It's only 57 in Nashville. You sure it's that warm?
Excuse me. Oh yeah, that's a 5, not a 6.
I was gonna say it's much warmer out there.
Well, you know, I come into the studio and I don't go out for hours, so I thought it might have gotten there. I need to get I actually do have an appointment to get some new glasses.
It is very nice out though. It's a little cool, but boy, the sunshine is great.
Yeah. You can find a nice warm spot to sit if you work it just right. The Biden administration is said to be very close to announcing tailpipe emission standards that will all but certainly force the major manufacturers of vehicles, you know, this is your Ford, your GM, your Stellantis, and others, to move toward a lot more electric vehicles. And it's something that, you know, basically consumers have said in many ways, mainly by just walking away and not buying them, that they don't want them. The Environmental Protection Agency's proposed tailpipe emissions, which were in recent weeks submitted to the White House Office of Management and Budget for final review, are designed to ensure a staggering 67% of new car sales are electric by 2032. That ain't that far down the line, folks. Over the weekend, the New York Times and the Washington Post reported the White House is set to double down on that lofty goal while loosening earlier targets. The president has been clear since 2020 that he intends to use his agencies to eliminate sales of new gasoline-powered cars. The American fuel and petrochemical manufacturers said in a statement following the media reports. Tinkering with the near-term speed of implementation doesn't change the end game, which is they want to ban new gas-powered cars. This is bad. I mean, this is really bad. Let me just tell you why this is a horrible thing is that they're just not ready. We're not ready. The electric cars are not ready for prime time. And now look, I mean, I know that Ford, don't hate me, don't at me. I know that there are people out there who have their Teslas and they love them. But for a lot of people, the electric car is just not a good fit. I'll tell you, for example, I drive a Ford F-150. And I love my F-150. And the main reason I have an F-150 is that I have an RV trailer that I occasionally like to drag and go camping in. And you can't do that with an electric car. Well, I mean, you know, even the electric trucks, they're good for what, about 30 miles when you're pulling a trailer? They're horrible. They don't last long. And so, you know, I mean, there are people who have a need. Besides all that, you know, a lot say, well, you get an electric car. Well, I don't want a car. I want a truck. I want a truck for all the reasons that guys like trucks. I like to take stuff and haul stuff and get stuff. I like because I am a big-butted man. I like the fact that I can get into a pickup truck and I don't feel cramped. I mean, you know, really, honestly. Let me choose the car that is best for me, and you choose the car that's best for you, and let the market decide. But no, the Biden administration knows better than the market. The Biden administration knows exactly what you need, and they're going to shove these electric cars down your throats, whether you like it or not. From the Epoch Times, new U.S. car prices fall by 3.5%. That's right. That's good. Okay. EV prices dropped by 10.8%. You know why? Because nobody wants them. They can't sell the damn things. The average transaction price of a new vehicle was $47,000 in January, a remarkable 3.5% decline from the same month earlier. But even with the lower prices, new vehicle sales fell from 16.1 million vehicles in December to 15 in January. But, I mean, the reasons that the electric vehicle transaction prices also declined in January, with the average price falling about 10% to $55,353. That's the average. $55,000. A lot of people can't afford $55,000, and don't want to spend that kind of money on a car. But that's where we're headed. The price of the highest volume EV in the market, the Tesla fell by more than Tesla Model Y fell more than 21%. And I think that was partially a marketing move. But I mean, look, if you could sell them and they were in hot demand, then you could get more money for them. The reason that the prices are coming down is not that I think they're losing money on some of these cars. I don't know about Tesla, but some of these cars. But the reason they're coming down is that the dealers have them on the lot and they can't move them. They can't sell them. I last week I was just out of curiosity. I did a search online to find out what electric vehicles were available, in my immediate vicinity. Like Lebanon, Mount Juliet, that kind of thing. I could have had any electric car I wanted. Now, I didn't want one, but I mean, they were available. They're sitting on the lot, and they're not moving. And dealers have gone back to the manufacturers and said, we can't sell them. The manufacturers are whining, and they're talking to the Biden administration saying, we need more time to perfect this technology, to get the charging stations out there. And on top of all that, we're just not ready for prime time. But the hybrid is a good option for a lot of people, so they're pushing to have the hybrids. The bottom line is, this is a perfect example of Democrats who think they know better what the American people need than the American people do. The way this ideally should work, whether it's a dishwasher or a gas stove or whatever it is that you ought to be able to say, this is the product that I need. This is the product that I want. I want to purchase this product, and that the manufacturers would listen to the customers and then build that product, and then they all make a lot of money. That'd be great. Here's the thing you asked for, and we would go, oh, that's fabulous. That's exactly what I need. I needed a washing machine. I needed a dishwasher. I needed a car that met my particular needs, and those are what I'm going to purchase. But no, we don't get that option under the Biden administration. What we get is being told, we're going to give you what we think is best for you, and you take it or you leave it. You like it or lump it. That's the way it is, because that's the way they operate. They know better. The free market is not allowed to do what the free market does. Listen, if you build a car, an electric car that really works for a lot of people, there are going to be a lot of people just lining up to buy them. They will. But we're not there yet, and they know that. And people know that because they've heard the horror stories. They're hard to maintain. They're expensive to maintain if something goes wrong. You're in a wreck with one, and you're in for a lot of money. If Cabana wife had been driving an electric car when that deer hit her, I say she hit the deer, but she says the deer hit her. She would have been out for a lot more than what the insurance company ended up having to pay to replace it or to fix it. So this is why we need to not have this administration in charge much longer. Look, I would say to young people, you've heard of this guy, Alexander Hamilton. I mean, he's more than just a show on Broadway. He developed the basic free enterprise system that we have in America today that has been so successful and has worked for many, many, many years. And what I know about the free enterprise system is if you get government out of the way of the free enterprise system, everything just works better. People should be able to talk to a manufacturer and talk about their needs and have the manufacturer respond. It should not be the situation where the government tells the manufacturer what they have to do. It ought to be the client, the customer, the people who are paying the freight on these new products to say, this is what we need. Can you make it? And they'll say, sure, we can make it. And they go out and they make it, and everything is great. The free enterprise system always works. Things start to go wrong when government steps in the middle of the free enterprise system and says, I know that a lot of you really want to have a dishwasher that will actually wash your dishes, but we know better. I know that you want to have a toilet that will actually flush and do the job, with one flush, but we know better. I know that you want a gas stove because, the people who are creative in the kitchen, believe that the gas stove, helps them out and that it's a faster way to apply heat and you can do a much better job of cooking. And you know what? I think they're right. That ought to be the thing. But no, the government knows better than you. You can't have that. You can't have the things you want because we know better. I tell you what, you stay on that path, Biden administration, and you're going to find yourself unable to pass any more regulations because you're going to be on the outside. And I can't wait for that to happen. Let the free enterprise system do what it does. The economy will be back on its feet just like that. Anytime you start to interfere with it, things go south. They go sideways. And everybody's unhappy with the economy right now. Things could be made so much better if you just let the free market do what the free market does. Let Alexander Hamilton's amazing vision for how an economy should work, and get the hell out of the way. I'm just full of all kinds of
Don't say it.
borderline curse words today. And it's 50 minutes past the hour at 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I want to talk to you about the folks over at USS. If you have a foundation problem or water problem, and man, with all the rain we've had, you may have really had a waterproofing problem. You need to call the folks at USS. They can help you. I promise you they can. The fact is this is an area where you need somebody with great expertise. This is not something that you know a lot about. Let's just be honest about it. So you need somebody who's going to be honest with you, and somebody will just give it to you straight from the shoulder. This is what's going on, and this is how we fix it. And that's what they do. They don't come out here and try to sell you something you don't need. They come out to try to solve your problem. 25,000 satisfied residential customers so far. They come out, they tell you what's going on, they give you their best advice as to how to fix it, and if you decide to go forward, you don't pay a penny until the job is done, and you are completely satisfied. I mean, completely satisfied. They've been in business 25 plus years, and some of the people have been with them since the very start. It's a good company. They're good people. They're honest people. At USS, they guarantee their best. Call USS, serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Northern Alabama, online at USSTN.com. Here's the number, 615-488-7855.
More classified documents cases, Nazis in Nashville, juvenile crime in Tennessee, and strikes continuing over in France. Those stories at 4 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's President's Day, but it's not really any president's birthday. I mean, Lincoln's the 12th, George Washington's the 22nd. But since 1968, we made these Monday holidays, and so it's the third Monday.
Just a Monday in between, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's just a random day. So I'm, happy, not your birthday to Abraham Lincoln and George Washington. By the way, it would have been the 22nd will be George Washington's 282nd birthday.
His teeth were only 270 years old, apparently.
That's right. And he doesn't look a day over 281. That's right. It is 58 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Grace Point Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing, so you'll know how much it will cost before the care is delivered. Smart Care plans start at $69 a month, and for that, you really get a lot. You get unlimited, I said unlimited office visits and free, I say free, basic labs for the entire year. And because they treat the entire family, even newborns, they offer family plans as well. Now, you marry that with a high-deductible insurance plan could save you and your family hundreds of dollars. At Grace Point, they take their time with each patient. They see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded wait rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible. It is a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider by Toast of Music City year after year after year. Grace Point Healthcare is on Main Street in Franklin. Call this number, 599-6868, to schedule a visit.
Four o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 58 degrees, a sunny day in Nashville. Traffic, complete weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Ahead of Robert Hur's expected testimony before lawmakers next month, House Republicans hoping to learn more from the Justice Department about the special counsel's probe of President Biden's handling of classified documents. Hur determined earlier this month that prosecutors would not be able to prove Biden's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Stephen Portnoy has more from Washington.
Among other things, House Republicans are seeking recordings of President Biden's interview with the special counsel and communications between the White House and the Justice Department in the lead-up to the Hur report's release. In a letter reviewed by ABC News, the Justice Department says it's working expeditiously to respond to the Republicans' requests. But first, DOJ says it will have to consult with the White House and others in the executive branch to determine whether any confidentiality interests might be asserted.
Later today in Nashville, Channel 4 says state lawmakers planning a press conference to respond to what appeared to be a group of neo-Nazis marching downtown on Saturday. This is one of the videos that popped up on social media.
Cowards! Cowards! All of you! Cowards! Show me your faces! Where's your face, you cowards? Show me your face! Show me your faces, you cowards! All of you! Cowards! Cowards!
A man shouting at the masked marchers who wore shirts with the words Blood Tribe on their shirts. Some held flags with swastikas. Police said the marchers got into a U-Haul box truck and left Davidson County, which indicates they may not be from here. Juvenile crime here in the Volunteer State. A 14-year-old has been arrested after allegedly throwing a scooter from the pedestrian bridge towards officers. 2 officers watched it hit their vehicle's roof. The teenager was found at Nissan Stadium later with a pistol. That scooter has a replacement cost of $1,600. He's now in juvenile detention. And the Eiffel Tower closed as workers go on strike. Ines de la Catera has more from Paris.
The Eiffel Tower closed on Monday for a one-day strike as workers demand that Paris City Hall officials immediately review the monument's business model, which they say is unsustainable, that it overestimates ticket sales and underestimates maintenance costs. This marks workers' second strike over the issue this year. Close to 7 million visitors flock to the Eiffel Tower every year.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Well, good afternoon. Hour number 2 of The Drive now kicking off on this Monday, the 19th day of February. It is President's Day, and so a lot of people have the day off, and a lot of banks are closed and all of that. But we're still here. Chris is there in the control room with all the blinky buttons, and Mac Maury, the newly engaged Mac Maury, is there in the newsroom. Ooh. I mean, very exciting. Today, instead of doing Mac Maury's wide, wild world of sports, we're just going to set the sports aside. Because, what we all want to hear is how he asked Hannah to marry him.
Yes.
And I have seen a picture, and it looks like it was, did you catch, just give us this. Was she surprised, or did she see it coming?
She was surprised up until maybe 5 minutes before, when I was starting to act super nervous and weird. But other than that, she was very surprised.
She kind of saw it coming a little bit when you started fumbling. And,
yeah.
Like, sweating a little more than usual.
Yeah, exactly. Stumbling over my words, super lovey-dovey. She's like, what the heck is he doing?
Yeah.
But other than that, it was a success.
All right. Well, we'll get all of the all of the details coming up at 5:25 today. There will be no sports. We're just going to talk about something that happened to Mac Maury during the month of Love-uary. Love-uary. That's what they call it on the Hallmark Channel, I'm pretty sure. So there you go. Okay. Well, listen, that's going to be good. Glad you guys are here, even though it is, a holiday. It doesn't mean that it's a holiday from the news. We've got news. Supreme Court could well set a landmark precedent in the Trump January 6th case. From the Epoch Times, for the second time this year, the Supreme Court could hear oral arguments on a relatively untested area of constitutional law as it relates to former President Donald Trump and set a landmark precedent that could affect the 2024 presidential race. Chief Justice John Roberts showed interest on February 13th in reviewing former President Donald Trump's request the prior day to halt a ruling against his presidential immunity claims in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit. Special counsel Jack Smith responded on February 14th, telling the court it should deny President Trump's request. Now, earlier this month, 3 D.C. Circuit judges rejected President Trump's claim that the doctrine of presidential immunity shielded him from Smith's prosecution related to the events of January 6th. Mr. Smith had asked the Supreme Court to fast-track President Trump's immunity appeal, but in December 2023 it declined, letting the D.C. Circuit tackle the issue first. So this is on hold. And now it looks like the High Court is going to sit down and talk about this. The appeals court set up a tight timeline for President Trump to request the Supreme Court's review before the district court continued its recently forestalled pretrial proceedings. Initially scheduled for March 4th, that trial is one of the many that could interfere with President Trump's campaign schedule and raise questions about the judiciary's relationship with American democracy. The presidential immunity issue also raises questions about how presidents may contest the election results, the threats they could face from future administrations, and whether the Constitution's separation of powers precludes courts from weighing in on certain presidential actions before Congress. As President Trump noted to the Supreme Court, the case presents a novel question that could have enormous consequences for future executives. The claim that presidents have absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for their official acts presents a novel, complex, and momentous question that warrants careful consideration on appeal, President Trump's February 12th brief to the Supreme Court said. So this is going to be one to watch. And as we get closer to it, I think the High Court is going to be moving at what for the High Court would be warp speed, pretty quick, because they understand. And here's the thing I know about the High Court. They hate cases like this. The High Court does not like to get into things that where one branch of government has to make a judgment about another branch of government. Now, when it comes to the House and the Senate, the Supreme Court has long said, for example, that the House and Senate get to make up their own rules, that they're independent bodies, and they have, for most of the time, then there are times when they say a piece of legislation is not constitutional, but they don't actually get into, this kind of deep stuff with another branch very often. And they don't like to do it, but, there are some questions here. Donald Trump has raised a really interesting question I think the strongest thing to say about January 6th is what was the state of mind of the president? Did he truly believe? Did he have reason to believe? And did he, in his own mind, truly believe that there had been, fraud that took place? I believe he did feel that way, and I do believe that there are some legitimate questions that have never been answered even to this day. But unfortunately, I don't know that we'll ever get those answers because it's very difficult to investigate election fraud. But did he believe it? And if he believed it deep within his heart and deep within his soul, that gets into state of mind, then I don't think it was inappropriate of him to try to reach out and say, wait a minute, we need to slow this down a little bit because I have questions, and I think in my mind, I believe that there was fraud. Now, whether or not there's fraud, let's not get into that for just the moment, because I'm telling you, everybody's got an opinion. You can argue it square, you can argue it round, but mostly that just gets into a lot of argument. The question is, what did he believe in his own mind? I think that's where it comes down to whether or not he acted, in some mind, people say he acted inappropriately. I'm not saying that he acted inappropriately. I'm saying I think he was within his rights to ask questions if he truly believed, indeed, that there had been fraud, and I think he did believe that. I don't know how you get to an answer on that thing, but then the question becomes, generally, presidents are granted immunity from prosecution while they're in office, and this happened while he was still president of the United States. So there's a lot to unpack here, and it will be interesting to see what the high court does, whether they continue to support sort of this unlimited view of immunity for a sitting president, or whether they say there are limits to that immunity. But one way or the other, it's going to the high court, and that's going to be, it's going to set, when the headline says it will set landmark precedents, it's entirely possible that is true. Joe Biden has got problems of his own. Here it is. Biden is apparently making more gaffes. Here he is this weekend. I think it was this weekend. He's talking about continuing to fund Ukraine, but that's not what he said.
The idea that we're going to walk away from Ukraine, the idea that we're going to let NATO begin to split, is totally against the interests of the United States of America, and it is against our word we've given since all the way back to Eisenhower. So it's about time we make sure that Congress come home and pass the legislation funding NATO. It's critical.
What? The last part?
Funding NATO.
He meant to say Ukraine. I mean, that's what he was talking about. Funding NATO. We do fund NATO to some degree, but he was talking about Ukraine.
Funding NATO.
So, again, people are pointing that out. Biden was referring to the bill aid to Ukraine, which includes $8 billion in direct budget support for the Ukrainian government, $14 billion for weapon purchases, $15 billion for military services, $10 billion in humanitarian aid that would be shared between Ukraine and Gaza and other war zones. That's the bill that was up for questioning, and that the House of Representatives does not want to even take up. So, he was talking about funding Ukraine, not funding NATO, which we already do, or at least part of it. The Fani Willis case, George Washington University law professor, Fox News legal analyst Jonathan Turley, I think he's so good. I mean, whenever I need some sort of somebody to explain the complexities of a very, complex legal issue, I like to hear him. I think he knows how to unpack it in a way that at least I can absorb it. He appeared on Fox News Sunday, to discuss Willis and Wade's recent testimony. D.A. Willis, Fani Willis, I think she pronounces it Fani. But Fanny's so much more fun, so we're going to do that. Fani Willis and Wade, her lover, Nathan Wade, recent testimony during their evidentiary hearing. The two are facing allegations that the DA financially benefited from her romantic relationship with Wade while the two worked together on an election fraud case against former President Donald Trump. And Turley was questioned by that nice Shannon Bream. She's so nice. Actually, she is a lovely human being. If you ever got to meet her, you would just adore her. She's just so sweet. While Turley detailed he believes the judge has heard enough based on the statements given, he noted the judge may ask the two to step aside due to the tough position he is in. Turley continued to question if the judge would refer both Willis and Wade to the bar over their allegations of false statements being filed, noting it could be an option the judge may take in addition to requesting a removal. One thing is clear is that no one will ever say election law is boring again, but the astonishing thing about that is you have to have two prosecutors who stand accused of filing false statements in the court. Mr. Wade is accused of answering interrogatories falsely, and Willis is accused of making false statements in her own filings. That's what they're prosecuting defendants for in the case. In other words, this is not about the fact that they had a relationship. It's like with Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton. Everybody said, well, it was, that he had sex with an intern is not really something that, we need to delve into. That's not what it was about. It was not that at all. It was about representations made under oath with Bill Clinton about Monica Lewinsky that were false. You cannot lie during an investigation. And during this investigation, there are a lot of signs that perhaps they did not tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and may have made misrepresentations to the court, which you can't do. So it's not about the fact that they had a relationship. It's about that they lied about the relationship when they filed their paperwork, when people asked them to explain what the hell was going on. You cannot do that. And I think it's entirely possible that both of these individuals could come before the Georgia bar and could lose their licenses to practice law. How can you be a district attorney if you don't have a law license? So there's some pretty serious questions here. You cannot make false representation when you are in quote unquote an officer of the court. That's not something you can get away with. Will he refer these two to the bar? There are allegations of false statements being filed. Their testimony did not help in that respect. And so will this judge say, look, I'm going to suggest that one or both of you remove yourselves, or maybe even order it, but I'm also going to ask the bar to look into these allegations. I think that's something that probably he should do. And then the question is, though, do they have to kill the case off, or will they kill the case off? I think that there's enough taint. The thing smells bad now because of what has happened. What did I say?
I think it's best we just move along. I'm not going backwards.
Okay. It went right past me.
Woo!
Maybe, did we need to hit the button?
No, not quite.
All right. Almost there. All right. Maybe during the break you can explain to me what I said. 20 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk.
Got a sharp decline in revenues from the Suez Canal. We'll tell you why. Plus some money news. 4:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I must apologize. I knew what taint meant in the proper pronunciation. To contaminate or pollute. You say the water was tainted.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then I must tell you, I did not know the slang meaning of that word. And I must deeply apologize.
You just phrased it so perfectly.
Yeah, it really was.
That's so good.
I've been on this earth a long time. I'm older than dirt, man, I'm telling you. And I've never heard that term before used that way.
Your mind is pure. Well, your mind was pure,
yeah,
Mr. Wilson, but no longer.
Now my mind is tainted. Folks, if you don't know what that means, you're going to have to look it up on your own because I'm not going to explain. I ain't going to explain it. No, sir. Oh, Lord. I don't know if I can go on. I don't know. What can I get into now? There we go. I'll pull this up. Oh yeah, fun story. I'll change the. Can you imagine getting on a jet? Now, you get on a commercial jet, and I don't know, they fly about, I don't know, I'd say about 450 miles an hour probably. Average 737. Look that up for me. What is the average cruising speed of a 737, for example? But I think it's around 300 to 400 miles an hour, somewhere in there. And they're at 35,000 feet, depending on which direction they're going.
Yeah, 490 to 525, they say is average.
Oh, okay. That's you get up. What is the speed of sound? It depends. It depends on a lot of factors, but roughly it's like 600 mile an hour plus, right? Somewhere like that. That's when you break the sound barrier.
Speed of, that don't do me any good. Don't
I know
give
they're
me
not,
metrics.
Yeah, they're not giving me the
660 miles per hour.
Yeah, I knew it was in the 600s. And it's not exactly 660. It depends on barometric pressure and altitude and temperature and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of things that have an impact on whether you break the sound barrier. But I know that 800 miles an hour is pretty dang fast for a commercial jetliner.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, if you were flying from Washington, D.C. over to Europe, you got into a tailwind that caused you to fly 800 miles an hour.
Whew.
Yeah. They say that the 265 mile an hour tailwind, which, you are adding whatever you're flying, you add 265 miles an hour to it with a tailwind. It was perhaps the fastest high-speed, upper-level, wind speed that had been recorded since the 1950s. There was a plane that took off from Dulles, which is just outside of Washington, and landed in London. It arrived 45 minutes early.
Man.
Because it was going so fast.
That's a good day.
Yeah. A Virgin Atlantic jet reached a peak speed of 802 miles an hour. That's higher than the speed of sound, which at that altitude would have been 767. But apparently it did not have a sonic boom because the atmosphere was moving faster. Apparently. Anyway, the reason we know this is we launch weather balloons all the time, and those weather balloons were getting to London pretty quick.
Yeah, 260 something. That's a heck of a breeze.
Yeah, when you go over, it usually is a little shorter than coming back because you're always going against some kind of headwind when you come back from Europe. And so the trip back from Europe usually takes longer than the trip over, usually. But this was picking them up and putting them down. 802 miles an hour in a standard passenger jet. That's moving it, picking them up and putting them up pretty quick.
Yes, it is.
That's right. The atmosphere was not tainted at all. It was 30 minutes. 30 minutes now. Wow, this is going to be a segment that they'll play back sometime.
Oh, yeah. It'll be on the highlight reel.
Remember the day when you talked about? Yeah. 30 minutes now past the hour.
.30, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 57 degrees, sunny in Nashville. Your forecast traffic report just ahead, 5 minutes. Egypt reporting a sharp decline in revenues from the Suez Canal due to Houthi strikes in the Red Sea. And Estela Cadera has more.
Egyptian President El Sisi saying dollar revenues from Egypt's Suez Canal are down 40 to 50% after attacks on ships by Yemen's Houthis caused major shipping companies to divert away from the route. The canal is the fastest shipping route between Europe and Asia and one of Egypt's main sources of foreign currency. It handles about 12% of world shipping traffic, including around a third of global container trade.
Now over to some money news. Here's Daria Albinger.
The markets are closed for President's Day, and it's going to be a pretty light week as far as economic reports are concerned, with leading indicators released on Tuesday and existing home sales on Thursday. Now, the holiday is a big one for sales, traditionally cars, trucks, and SUVs. If you're in the market for a used one, you might be able to find a deal. Kelley Blue Book says prices are finally beginning to drop on pre-owned vehicles, but if you're set on buying new, you can plan to pay an average of $50,000. This is the time of year that college acceptance letters start going out, but for many students, the excitement of being accepted into their first choice school is tempered by a troublesome uncertainty that they'll get the financial aid that they need or maybe not. The decisions which usually accompany acceptance letters are being delayed due to a later than expected rollout of the revised financial aid application. The markets will return to business as usual Tuesday.
And that's the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
It is 37 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, learning new vocabulary words every day. All right, enough of that. You know what they say, what's behind you is not important. What's in front of you is important. Just can't change the past, just move forward. But I will never make that mistake again, I can assure you. All right. Let's do this 2024 update because we got a lot of stuff now. You're going to be very happy that I'm not throwing numbers at you today. No numbers. I didn't see any numbers. Well, I saw some Texas numbers where very predictable. Donald Trump is going to destroy Joe Biden in the state of Texas. I don't understand, by the way, on that front, why it is that you hear all this talk about how Soros is trying to turn Texas blue. I can't see that happening. And the numbers suggest that the Republicans are going to continue to do very well in my home state of Texas. But let's talk about some other stuff. It really is not going very well for Team Biden right now at all. And they are, floundering around, and a lot of Democrats are sort of whispering behind the scenes, talking about what are we going to do? This thing's a mess. Something needs to happen. From thedailycaller.com, Team Biden reportedly going all in on one big Hail Mary to turn the campaign around. President Joe Biden's re-election campaign and officials are banking on March's State of the Union address to help reset his 2024 bid as he trails former President Donald Trump in the polls. Less than a year out from the 2024 election, Biden is trailing former President Donald Trump in a hypothetical matchups across several key swing states, as many of Biden's top allies worry about the president's re-election chances. Officials see his State of the Union address as a turning point that could help stunt talks about the 81-year-old's fitness for office, according to Axios. Everyone around him is well aware of the need to jack this campaign up, a source close to Biden told Axios. The only way to deal with the negative aftershocks of the special counsel's report is for the president to be out there, to be visible, to be strong of presence and voice, and strong of voice. Officials close to the president are hoping to recreate Biden's 2023 State of the Union address, which they believe successfully showed the president's agility as he slammed Republicans and discussed Social Security sources. Sources told Axios. Ahead of the March address, let's see, what day is that, by the way? Can you find out? I think it's after the March primary, which is March 5th. But it really, if he gets up there and he does a face plant, if he has a bad moment or a brain freeze, what is it?
March 7th.
Okay. All right. So March 7th is the State of the Union. The thing about it is, I was sort of hoping that the Speaker of the House would tell him, yeah, we don't really want it. Because when you are the Speaker of the House, it's your invitation. See, the president doesn't get to decide what day. The Speaker of the House suggests a date. So he suggested 2 days after the March 5th primary, which is Super Tuesday, as the date. So, it will be, you wouldn't want to have him do it just before Super Tuesday. So it seems like right after Super Tuesday is probably there. That's by the way, very late. Generally, these things happen in January or February. I've seen them both. But apparently the folks in Team Biden think he's going to have to go out there and he's going to have to deliver a great speech. I mean, I know what they'll do. They'll do all the things that they need to do to jack him up. They'll give him a B12 shot and they'll give him a double dose of 5-hour energy drink. And they'll give him some Prevagen and maybe put him in the hyperbaric oxygen tent for a while to oxygenate his blood. I mean, they'll do all this stuff. I don't know what they'll do, but they'll jack him up. Because I can tell you, if you watch him, his best time of day is generally about 10 o'clock in the morning. If you catch him about 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he is not sharp at all. Not at all. And that's very, very common among people who are going through the kinds of things he's going through. So to have an evening speech, they'll have to jack him up on all kinds of stuff. And you know, he's pretty good for about 20 minutes when he's rested, but after that he starts to wane a little bit. So it's a very high risk thing. It's a tightrope thing when you're this president and as prone to making mistakes. If he sticks to the teleprompter religiously, he'll probably get through it okay. But where he starts to get into trouble is that he starts to ad lib off the teleprompter. He'll be reading the teleprompter and then he'll add in something that's not on the teleprompter or start to tell a story. And then he very quickly, if it's not written down for him, he runs out of facts. He runs out of information, or he can't remember the story, or there's something about it that he forgets, or he misspeaks like he did, you know, talking about Ukraine and NATO. So, I mean, it's a tightrope. If he gets through the whole speech, then you know, I mean, if he's just barely decent and gets through the entire speech without any real major faux pas, then Democrats will say, see, there's nothing wrong with this guy. He's fine. He's sharp as a tack. Hey, that's what they do. They all go around talking about how sharp he is. And you know he's not that sharp because, you know, we get to see him a little bit each day, but and what we see of him is probably, you know, 1/10 of the time. That's even much less than that. Maybe we get to see him 2 or 3% of the time he's in our public view. But they say, well, behind the scenes, he's sharp as a tack. But why is it in the 2 or 3% of the time that we get to see him, there's always a mistake? And why do everybody always out there insist there's nothing wrong with this guy?
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
This is a man who is sharp, who is on top of his game, who knows what's going on.
This guy's tough. He's smart. He's on his game. His mental acuity is great.
This is a very sharp president.
This is a man that's on his game.
President Biden is absolutely fit.
There's not a problem.
He's sharp, he's fit, he's always answering questions. He is on the ball.
He was sharper than anyone I've spoken to.
He is sharp. He is on top of things.
There's no doubt in my mind that the president is mentally fit for office.
Biden has proven himself to have a strong memory.
He's completely mentally sharp.
He's at the top of his game.
Think about it. Look, here's the lives. When you think about it. I propose, and I'm going to digress slightly. We're in a situation.
With the whole, excuse me. All men and women created by go. You know the thing. Anyway, and I don't want to. Well, maybe choose my words. I was just thinking. Anyway, I just look. I mean, Putin's kleptocracy. Yeah.
I mean, this is if this is what we get to see, if this is the best of Biden that we get to see, how can he be that sharp behind the scenes?
He said, it's not, we lead, not just, well, I won't go into it. Here's what drives the driver in the states that are affected. Here's what you can do, the drivers. For 2 reasons. One, it's an impact.
This is just too painful. I can't do it anymore. I mean, that goes on, by the way, for 5 minutes. The stuttering and the stammering. So which one are we going to get at the State of the Union on March 7th? March 7th. He's going to be walking a tightrope. If it goes well, they'll try to make the best out of it. If it goes badly, it could be very bad. By the way, Rashida Tlaib has told Michigan Democrats to not vote for Joe Biden. On Saturday, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, Democrat of Michigan, urged Democrats to vote uncommitted in the upcoming Michigan presidential primary in a show of protest against the Biden administration's support for Israel against Hamas. In a statement on X, Tlaib said, "It is important, as you all know, not only to march against the genocide, not only making sure that we are calling out our members of Congress and local electeds and passing resolutions all throughout the country, it is also important to create a voting bloc, something that is a bullhorn is to say enough is enough." See, Muslim Americans are not happy with the way they are handling the situation with Israel and Hamas. And so, you know, when you consider that about 2% of the voters in the state of Michigan are Muslim voters, Arab American voters, they're not, you know, you could lose 2%. And then, you know, there's a whole lot of other people not happy with Joe Biden in the state of Michigan, like union workers, etc. So one way or the other, you know, he's not doing well in Michigan. And you actually have Democrats who are saying, don't vote for him in Michigan. Now, they're talking about the primary here, but one wonders what will happen in Michigan during the regular election. Here's another story from thehill.com. Michigan progressives are angry over Gaza, urge voters to ditch Biden in the primary. But I think they're going to ditch him in the regular election as well, or sit on their hands and not vote. That's a serious problem. To get the electoral votes you need to become president, you got to pretty much go through Michigan. It's one of the battleground states you've got to win, and he won it in the past. But I don't think he's going to win it this time. I think the numbers are aligned against him. The last I saw, he might be down as much as 6, 7, 8 points in Michigan. From Washington Examiner, Kamala Harris has stepped up on the campaign trail, but leading Democrats fear it's not enough. Vice President Kamala Harris has taken a more active approach to her re-election campaign with Joe Biden, but some of the Democratic Party's biggest names remain frustrated over what they see as a missed opportunity. Those frustrations have come out during weekend meetings at Harris's Naval Observatory residence, where the vice president has listened to Democrat leaders and tried to crack the campaign's information bubble. Such leaders included Governors Gretchen Whitmer, J.B. Pritzker, and Wes Moon, Democrat of Maryland. She's been coordinating with and listening to her fellow Democrats and have reportedly been well received, but a feeling of stagnation remains, with leading Democrats worried it will lead to their downfall in November. I mean, the fact of the matter is, if you vote for Joe Biden, you have to look at his age and run the actuarial table numbers on it. And I think what you come to the conclusion is that, you know, I don't wish ill on our current president. That's not what I'm saying, but the numbers are really not in his favor that he survives all the way through a second. I mean, you look at the actuarial tables, and it doesn't look good for a man who has his kinds of health issues. So you basically have to wonder if by voting for Biden, am I ultimately voting for President Harris? We need to, by the way, be making that point a lot. Very quickly, the No Labels party got told, I think it was last Friday, that Manchin was not going to run for president, and so they're now looking around because they had sort of thought they might go with Manchin, I guess. He ruled out a presidential run, and so the folks at No Labels are saying we need to look around and decide who's available. They will likely make a determination on whether it will push a unity president ticket around March 5th, Super Tuesday. And on the other side of the equation, Nikki Haley over the weekend said she will support, has refused to say whether she will support Trump if he wins the nomination. So I'm not sure that she's going to say, you know, I think the promise, they were asking everybody to make the promise, but Nikki Haley's not saying that she will ultimately support Trump if indeed he clinches the nomination, as we expect, right around March 5th, probably on March 5th. It's 4:52 now on Super Talk 99.7.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
And the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
And we will make America great again. God bless you and good night. I love you.
Wait.
5:01, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 57 degrees, a clear day in Nashville. Traffic, complete weather forecast 5 minutes away. When it comes to financial aid, many students and their parents say the current system does not make the grade. Daria Albinger.
For college-bound students, few things compare with the excitement of being accepted by their first-choice school. It's often tempered, though, by the uncertainty of whether they'll get the financial aid they need to attend. And this year, that worrisome wait may be longer than usual. Financial aid decisions, which usually accompany acceptance letters, have been delayed due to a later-than-expected rollout of a revised financial aid application. Some schools are adapting and dropping the popular May 1st admission deadline as a result.
Juvenile crime in Tennessee. A 14-year-old has been arrested after allegedly throwing a scooter from the pedestrian bridge towards officers. 2 officers watched it hit their vehicle's roof. The teenager was found at Nissan Stadium later with a handgun. That scooter has a replacement cost of $1,600. Now that juvenile in detention. Nikki Haley still in the race. The Republican primary map, though, getting more and more complicated for the Trump challenger. Jay O'Brien explains.
Former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley is getting trounced in her home state of South Carolina by double digits in current polls by former President Donald Trump, according to polling averages compiled by ABC's partners at 538. After South Carolina comes Michigan's primary days later, where 538 currently has polls showing Trump leading Haley 80 to 20%. Then just a week later comes Super Tuesday, when more than a dozen states will hold their primaries.
Right now in Nashville, a teenager suspected in 2 murder cases. Now a suspect in a shooting. 19-year-old Oswaldo Corrado, free on bond and waiting for trial on the murder cases when he allegedly shot an acquaintance in the hand at Millridge Park on Old Hickory Boulevard Friday night and pointed a gun at the 23-year-old's cousin. He was arrested at the Walmart in Laverne on Saturday. Staying in Tennessee right now, a woman run over by a train this morning in Springfield. It was near Industrial Drive on Highway 41 when she was discovered on the tracks. The victim said to be uninjured but critically ill and hypothermic. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is now 6 minutes, we'll call it 7 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I am Brian Wilson. I am your friend and radio buddy. I'm your Farb and always will be. Glad you're with us on this President's Day. A lot of people had the day off, or a few people had a day off. But Chris and I and Mac Maury were all here. And listen, speaking of Mac Maury, coming up at 5:25, you know, usually it's the smash runaway hit, Mac Maury's Wide Wild World of Sports. But we're not going to do that today because Mac has asked a lovely young woman to be his bride.
Just walked up to a random one on the street, I think. I think that's how it happened.
He heard we were talking about him, and he rushed back into the news. Yeah. So and coming up at 5:25, Mac's he's gonna tell us the story of how it all went down. Ooh. Everybody wants to know how did it all happen? How did it all go down? And Chris was. I hope you don't mind. I don't think you mind that you told Chris, and Chris told me last Friday that, it was happening.
This was going down.
It was going down on Saturday. And so I can't wait to hear the story. It's very exciting. So that's coming up in just a few moments. In the meantime, allow me to get a little news in here about what's going on with the border issue and more particularly the impeachment charges that have been leveled against Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security. So when last we visited this story, the House of Representatives had been able to squeak out an impeachment by, I think, 1 vote, 2 votes, in the House of Representatives. The margins are very thin over there, and it was an impeachment. So Alejandro Mayorkas has been impeached, but the real question here is what happens next. Because just impeaching somebody is only half. You have to have a trial and convict them if you want to have them removed from office. And I would like to see Alejandro Mayorkas removed from office. I think he has done a great disservice to this country. I truly do. But you know what happened? The Senate just simply said, we're going to table that. We're going to lay it on the table. And we're not going to take it up. I mean, it's sitting there. It's not. They don't have to take it up. But I want to read this to you from the Epoch Times again. This is a sort of a shortened version of what Ted Cruz said over the weekend on one of the Sunday talk shows. Senator Ted Cruz, and by the way, Ted Cruz, when he speaks about constitutional matters, we really should pay attention because, quite frankly, he may be one of the great legal minds of our era. He is. Many people will agree. He's a really, really sharp constitutional scholar. He knows his stuff. So Senator Ted Cruz, Republican of Texas, is calling on the Senate to follow the constitutional process after a vote on whether to proceed with an impeachment trial for the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas was tabled in the Senate. House Republicans impeached Mr. Mayorkas over several issues, chief among them being border security, as an unprecedented number of illegal immigrants have been crossing the southern border. The Senate is responsible for holding impeachment trials, which can result in a guilty charge or an acquittal. On Sunday Morning Futures, Mr. Cruz claimed that suspending consideration of the House's pending articles of impeachment has never happened in the entire history of the United States. In over 200 years of our nation's history, the Senate has never once tabled articles of impeachment. That has never happened before. Every single time, the Senate has voted on either guilt or innocence, or the House has withdrawn the impeachment. According to USA Gov, an official U.S. federal government web portal, here are the statistics. The House has initiated impeachment proceedings more than 60 times, with only 21 resulting in impeachment. So there have been 21 impeachments in the history of the whole United States out of the House of Representatives. They impeach, and then the trial is supposed to take place in the Senate. Now, of the 21, that includes 3 presidents, That's hard to believe. 1 cabinet secretary and 1 senator. So far, only 8 people facing impeachment have been found guilty by the Senate and removed from office. And guess what? All of them were federal judges. How about that? But there has always been a trial. There has always been, the matter has been taken up by Senate. If it comes over from the House, then the Senate takes it up. But in this particular case, Chuck Schumer has tabled it, the matter, and does not intend to bring it up. Now, if he were to convict Mr. Mayorkas, they could face removal from office and disqualification from holding public office in the future if found guilty. And if Republican leadership in the Senate doesn't like the criticism, here's an opportunity to demonstrate some backbone, Mr. Cruz said. They could stand up and say, let's have a trial. 2-term incumbent Cruz is seeking a 3rd term in office, by the way, in 2024. He says it's going to be a tough race, by the way, because he has a target on his back. He said in his last race he won by less than 3 points because he's a top target. And really, one thing that Democrats are pretty much in agreement, they don't like somebody smart like Ted Cruz on the other side. Ted Cruz, I think, will be reelected. I saw a poll today that said he was 14 points ahead of his opponent. So I think he'll do fine. It's still early, and in a race like that, it could change depending on, what kind of ads are run. And, boy, they're going to throw a lot of money against Ted Cruz. But I ultimately think Ted Cruz will win. But Ted Cruz is right. He's absolutely right about how this needs to go forward in the Senate. Now, look, let's not live under any expectations that Alejandro Mayorkas is going to be convicted in the Senate. You need a 2/3 vote of the Senate to convict. So that's a very high bar, and I don't see it happening as things stand today. However, I'm glad that they're not withdrawing it. I'm glad they're going to leave it there on the table because, look, it's entirely possible that something could happen that will so enrage the American people, that would so enrage, even the Democrats in the Senate, that they would feel compelled to bring it up. I can think of things. I don't even want to even possibly speak them, but let's just say this. The neglect that has happened on the border is a national security crisis in that we don't know a lot about a great number of people who've come across this border. We don't know who they are. We don't know where they are, and we don't know what they're up to. And we've had a fair number of people who've been caught at the border and found that they're on the traveler's watch list, the terrorist watch list, and those are the ones that we caught. We don't know how many of the people who might be on the terrorist watch list got through, because there are so many of these gotaways that are out there. Somewhere around, I think it's around 2 million. 2 million people came into this country we don't know anything about. Some of them are bound to be on the terrorist watch list. Just the law of statistics would tell you that. Should something happen, then, maybe there would be such a hue and cry, a howl of outrage against what has happened at the border, that they would feel compelled to bring up those articles of impeachment. But short of that, they won't. They won't. It's a crying shame, because really, honestly, I think the American people know what's going on here. They're smart enough to know that indeed this is not something that happened by accident. This is not happen because it's the fault of Republicans. This is the fault of the Democrats, and they know they've got a problem, and they know that this president's got a problem, and they know that the border is a very touchy issue. When you talk to people right now and ask them what is the one issue you care about more than anything else, it used to be that they would always say it's the economy, it's the economy, it's the economy, and the economy still rates pretty high. But in many of the polls, it is now what's happening on the southern border. It really concerns me. And it's easy to understand why, because what's happening on the southern border is very concerning. I wish that the Senate would take it up and just say, okay, let's deal with it. I mean, if you don't think that there's enough votes there, hold the trial and move on. But it's pretty, well, I'll tell you what it is. It's pretty to just put it on the table. That's wrong. So, what will happen? I don't know. I mean, we've done all that we can do. Mark Green got this across the goal line. The Senate has got the matter. The House has passed it. He has been impeached. He will always have on his mark a little asterisk that says he was impeached by the House of Representatives. But then it will also be the follow-on sentence will be but not convicted in the Senate unless something changes. I think that the only way this changes is if the American people express enough outrage that Democrats start to feel the heat and decide that they have to hold the trial. I think people are angry enough. I think that there are Republicans, I think there are independents, and I think there are Democrats who are angry enough about what's happened on the border that if they let their anger be shown, if they got on the phone, if they caused made a lot of noise and said, listen, we want you to do something about this, they would at least bring it up. I don't think that they would have 2/3 vote to convict, but you could force them to have the trial where the American people will get to hear all of the evidence and they have to then decide whether or not there should be a conviction. I'm not under any expectations that there will be a conviction, but I do think that the Senate owes it to the American people for there to be a trial. And Ted Cruz is right. If it has never happened in the history of the entire United States, on this President's Day, it's a good day to remember that in the history of this state, of this United Nations, in over 200 years, more than 200 years, the Senate has never once tabled articles of impeachment. It has never happened until now. It is now 20 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk. Let me tell you about the folks over at Busy Bee. Busy Bee, if you need heat or cold AC, and this time of year, you could use a little bit of both, because some days it's really, really, well, last night was really cold. And then during the day it gets to be, sort of warmish. And it's gonna continue to be that time of year where you need both sides of your HVAC. At night you need the heat, and during the day you might need a little air conditioning. And to make sure it's working right, and if it's not working right, why don't you just call this number? 775-7833. That's the number to Busy Bee HVAC and Plumbing. They'll come right over. They'll fix whatever's wrong with your system and get you up and running. Now, I'm going to give you a little tip here. The way you keep these systems running without problems is to do something known as preventative maintenance. And that's what being a member of the Beehive Club is all about. You pay $99. It starts at $99. You get 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems. One that is aimed at heating, one that is aimed at cooling, and another that is aimed at your plumbing. No overtime charges 24/7 and 10% off all repairs. You got that? No overtime charges, 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. For satisfaction guaranteed, call this number, 615-775-7833, online at busybehvac.com.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
And the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
And we will make America great again. God bless you and good night. I love you.
Taking a look at polling between Donald Trump and Nikki Haley. Not pretty for Nikki Haley right now. School news concerning fourth graders in Tennessee and some new details coming out over the arrest and the murder of a man and woman that was inside of a dorm room in Colorado. 5:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Oh, we've only just begun. Here are the Carpenters. That's right. We're choosing this music instead of our regular Mac Maury wide wild world of sports music because, well, it's a red letter day in young Mac Maury's life. This weekend, he asked somebody to marry him. And we didn't really know whether she truly existed or not, but apparently she does. No, I've met her one time. I do remember. Her name is Hannah.
Yes.
And so on Friday, you mentioned to Chris on the way out the door, wish me luck, buddy, because it's going to happen on Saturday.
It's happening.
And then I found out about it. And then on Sunday, I saw you sent me a picture. And we're all very happy for you, first of all.
Thank
we
you.
Want you to,
absolutely.
I mean, really, honestly, this is such a good moment for you. And I want you to remember. Yeah, it is exciting.
It really is.
You're starting a big adventure, and I'm a big fan of marriage. I've done it a lot, and so I recommend it to people. But I try to just do it one time if you can. It's it took me 3 times to get it right.
Well, third time's the charm. They say
third time's the charm. That's right. But I think Mac's going to get it on the first one.
I think I've got this. Yes.
All right, Mac, tell us the whole story because everybody wants to know. How did you propose?
Okay, so I had this planned for a few weeks. Her best friends were such a big help in kind of prepping this, coming up with some sort of ideas. And then the day comes, and anxiety ensues, obviously. My stomach is way lower than it should be, that's for sure. I'm feeling crazy. She goes to her workout in the morning. Okay, this gives me a little bit of time to just like decompress, walk around, pace, heavy breathing without getting asked any questions. But she thought that we were just going on a nice date for Valentine's Day because we didn't necessarily really get to do that on Wednesday. So I kind of was like, hey, Saturday, that's going to be the big day. I'm going to take you to I'm going to take you to a winery because she loves wine. Who doesn't love a nice glass of wine? And, which winery are you going to? Where are we going? I want to see the menu because she always has to see the menu. I'm like, you don't know this winery. I should have maybe prepped that better and just chosen a venue. But I was like, you don't know this place. It's going to be a surprise. You're going to love it. I promise. And so that's working for a little bit. And then I'm like, hey, we're going to have a really nice, I didn't say this, but it was really nice. But I had a Lyft or an Uber pick us up. And I was like, yeah, that's just a way we can have an extra glass of wine than we usually have. It's
don't have to worry about it, right?
Yeah, it's a Saturday. Let's just Uber. This will be easy. She's like, okay, that's good. It's funny because it's a colder day. I'm going, dang it, it's 60 degrees on Thursday and Friday. Of course, Saturday, it's one of the last.
It's cold, yeah.
30. It's cold. It's 30 degrees. The sun's starting to come out around noon, and I'm going, yes, because we were going there around 1:30, and I just needed that sun to start poking out. And, Hannah and I spend a lot of Saturdays getting cozy, watching some movies. We're not big, going out people. So she was like, I wouldn't mind if we just stayed and watched a movie, ordered something in. And I was like, I think that we should do this. I was like, I really think you're going to like this.
Just give it a chance.
She was like, okay, all right. So she started to get ready and get all pretty, which doesn't take long for her. And then the Uber, thank you. The Uber came, picked us up, and she's going, we're like 5 minutes away. She's like, this doesn't seem... Why I know where we would go to wineries. I was like, this is a winery.
It doesn't
around
look like
here.
wine country.
Yeah. What are we doing? I'm like, you haven't been to this place. Just be patient. And I don't know if you've been to Love Circle, but it's a park on a hill that overlooks the whole skyline of the city. It's a
nice,
fantastic view. But other than the view, I mean, it's in a kind of a weird. I mean, some nice houses. John Rich's house actually is up above it, overlooking the park. But there's barbed wire fences with electrical towers. I mean, behind the view is not necessarily the most romantic scenery. Yeah. So we start pulling up, and she said after the fact, she's like, I knew we weren't going to a winery when I saw the barbed wire. And I was like, okay, that's fair. So my cover started to be blown then. But we pulled up. We walked up the hill. The sun was out just enough. I had a blanket there ready for her, other than the one we were sitting on. Their friends had prepped the table, the basket, the glass of wine's there.
Oh, it's all there, ready to go.
All there, yeah. She's going, how did you do this? You drove back? I was like, yeah, I did it. Really quickly, crazy, right? I'm Superman. So then, after that, when we sat down and really started talking or whatever, that's when I started to get weird and awkward because I started to, just bring up lovey-dovey stuff, and I could tell from her face she was like, "Okay,
what's going on?
What are you doing here,
It's
buddy?"
She got to thinking it was about to happen.
Yeah, she's like, "Okay, I think this is gonna happen," because I could tell she was she had no clue. But then we started to kind of get into the thick of it, and then I had her stand up. We were sitting down. I was like, let's stand up, and she was like, okay.
Why?
Yeah, what are we doing? And then I did the whole classic. The ring was in the basket. I pulled the ring out, opened the box. Hannah, will you spend the rest of your life with me? And then her friends popped out. My friend with his camera popped out. Woo! And
where were they? Where were they hiding?
They were hiding under the hill. One of my best friends is a professional photographer, so that's clutch. So he was ready to go. He had all the angles. He had the lens. We were ready to go. And then they were just sitting next to him, hiding under him because he kept poking up and down with getting the pictures, trying not to be seen. and the girls are going, "Has he done it yet? Is he doing it? It's cold. Tell him to hurry up. Let's go. Let's go." But yeah, it was awesome. It was perfect. She thought it was everything and more that she wanted, which is what matters.
That's right.
And we got some good pictures, and it was a great day. We went and had some drinks and food with family and friends after. It was magnificent. I'm really, really excited.
Yeah. Well, and
That's
so you did have some things with family afterwards, and
Yep.
family. Did you have to go ask Dad?
Yep. I went and did that a while ago without her knowledge. It was like, I'm gonna go play some disc golf with some buddies. Drove to their house and asked her dad.
Very nice.
Yeah, so did that and got the approval there. So I made sure I did every step. I really did.
Yeah.
Really did try to. Yeah, thank you.
That's great.
Yeah.
Look at you. That's right. So, do you have a date set now?
No, not yet. We're thinking next fall, which hopefully, gonna miss
not this coming fall, but the next fall.
Next fall, yeah.
So
So
a year and a half out.
a college football Saturday, maybe in danger, but all right, whatever.
Yeah. All right. Well, congratulations.
Nicely done, yeah.
Very,
Thank
very
you.
nicely
Thank you.
done. A lot of thought went into it, and nothing but great wishes for you and Hannah.
I really appreciate it.
It's 31 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock.
.531, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. 55 degrees, sunny on Music Row. Traffic report, weather forecast, 5 minutes. Former President Donald Trump still fending off a primary challenge from his former UN ambassador Nikki Haley, but he's dominating in the polls, sounding more and more every day like a general election candidate rather than someone who's vying for his party's nomination. Jay O'Brien.
Former President Donald Trump's lead more than doubling Nikki Haley in South Carolina polls, according to polling averages compiled by ABC's partners at 538. South Carolina is Nikki Haley's home state. Here she is at a campaign event this weekend.
Everybody's telling me, why don't you just get out? I will never give up.
Meantime, former President Trump spent part of Saturday at SneakerCon in Philadelphia, selling $400 Trump-branded shiny gold sneakers.
Right now in Tennessee, parents of fourth graders are going to be getting some information from school districts soon on what it'll take for their kid to move on to the fifth grade. The State Department of Education signed off Friday on what will be defined as adequate growth for about 12,000 kids in Tennessee based on statewide assessment tests. Those tests are set to be administered from April 15th to the 30th. And some new details about an arrest in the murder of a man and a woman inside of a dorm room at the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs last week. An arrest was made today. Here's Alex Stone.
ABC News confirming 25-year-old murder suspect Nicholas Jordan is a student at the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, arrested, accused of killing 24-year-old student Sam Knopp and 26-year-old Celie Montgomery in a dorm last week. Colorado Springs Police Chief Adrian Vasquez telling ABC News.
We're still trying to figure out in his investigative pieces about specifically where they lived, how anybody knew each other.
And that is the latest news, weather, traffic report next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
What keeps you up at night politically?
Well, the thing that keeps me wide awake are the misinformation efforts that are underway throughout this campaign.
Oh, please, misinformation. The only misinformation is coming out of Jim Clyburn.
It is 38 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy on this President's Day, the 19th day of February. Isn't it interesting that it's President's Day, but it's really not? As far as I know, no president was born on the 19th of February. I don't think so. You got Lincoln on the 12th, George Washington on the 22nd, but we celebrate President's Day on a day that is nobody's birthday, but it is a Monday. So there you go. Yeah. At 5:38 on President's Day, February 15th, 2024. From the whole thing with our relationship with Russia right now, a little tense. We've been very critical of the passing of Alexei Navalny. And I'll get more into that in just a moment, but I want to start with this. From Newsmax.com, but it is from a Daily Mail report. Moscow will fire nuclear weapons at Washington and other Western capitals if it is forced to give up the Ukrainian territory it has taken over, says Dmitry Medvedev. I can't ever say his name. Medvedev, a close ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin. According to a return to Russia to the border, attempts to return Russia to the border of 1991, when the Soviet Union collapsed, will lead only to one thing: toward a global war with Western countries using the entire strategic arsenal of our state in Kyiv. Berlin, London, Washington, said Medvedev, who is a deputy head of the Russian Security Council, which controls the war against Ukraine. That's scary that we have a high-ranking Russian official who is saying that if they are forced to give up any of the territory they have gained in the war with Ukraine, that they will launch nuclear weapons at the United States and other Western capitals. He added the answer is obvious to the question if Russia will have the courage to do this if the disappearance of a 1,000-year-old country, our great motherland, is at stake, and the sacrifices made by the people of Russia over the centuries will be in vain. He emphasized that the West should not think that in such a scenario the border leadership of Russia will tremble in its hand in pushing the nuclear button. Wow. That's scary stuff. Coming from somebody who actually has nuclear weapons, somebody who is, as we understand it in recent days, thinking about putting nuclear weapons of some kind in outer space. Medvedev, who was the president of Russia from 2008, I mean, this guy was high-ranking. He was the former president of Russia from 2008 to 2012, stressed that it's better to return everything to us before it's too late, or we will return it ourselves with maximum losses for the enemy. He also lashed out at what he called, are you ready? Snotty Anglo-American fosterlings who oppose Putin's rule, saying that the British and German defense ministers, Grant Shapps and Boris Pistorius, were a-holes who believe the world cannot afford for Russia to defeat Ukraine. He added that if Shapps and Pistorius got their way, there would be a direct and irreversible collapse of present-day Russia, including the territories in Ukraine that the Kremlin has taken over. Understand that what we have here is a very high-ranking Russian official. He's the deputy head of the Russian Security Council, who is responsible for carrying out the conduct of the war of Russia against Ukraine. And he basically is threatening Western capitals, including the United States, saying, if you try to take back the land that we have captured from Ukraine, we will not hesitate to launch nuclear weapons against you. Wow. That is scary. That's like, I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, to me, that's reminiscent of the day that Khrushchev banged his shoe on the table at the UN. That's threatening. That's a direct threat from a very high-ranking former president of Russia. Of course, right now, everybody's talking about Navalny and his body. This was this Russian opposition leader, Alexei Navalny. His body was reportedly found with signs of bruising this weekend. He's been very much someone who's been against Putin. And he was seen on a TV camera making an appearance in a courtroom. And then he went out, apparently he went out for a walk and then started to feel bad and collapsed. And they tried to poison him once before, and the thought is that they were finally successful. Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny's body was reportedly found with signs of bruising this weekend, while government officials told his mother on Saturday that he died of a sudden death syndrome. Yeah, being an opponent of Vladimir Putin will lead to sudden death of syndrome. Officials at the president, while Navalny died, told his mother that his body could not be handed over until an investigation had been completed. They said his body had been sent to a nearby morgue. An anonymous paramedic claiming to work for the morgue told independent news outlet that the bruising was consistent with a person being held down while suffering a seizure. Usually the bodies of people who die in prison are taken straight to the Bureau of Forensic Medicine, but in this case it was taken to the clinical hospital for some reason, the anonymous paramedic told the outlet. Meanwhile, world leaders said that Navalny's own spokesperson have declared that he was in fact murdered by Russian President Vladimir Putin's regime. Prison officials said Navalny, age 47, fell unconscious and died shortly afterward on Friday. He had been serving roughly a 30-year sentence in a penal colony. When his lawyer and mother arrived at the colony this morning, they were told the cause of Navalny's death was sudden death syndrome. That's a very broad medical term that is not a formal condition or a diagnosis. It rather refers to a wide range of scenarios that lead to sudden and unforeseen death. I mean, the president has said that Putin is responsible. He also said we don't have all the details, but he's responsible. Again, this is very tense. He said that, the United States, they're looking at what kind of sanctions, what kind of action they might take. It sounds like this tough talk from Medvedev is an attempt to try to frighten us from doing anything with regard to Navalny. But this is just ugly. And then there's this. Some people came back and tried to go and honor him. Russian courts have sentenced dozens of people detained at events commemorating Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny to short prison sentences, court officials' announcement showed, with 154 sentenced in St. Petersburg alone. Details of rulings published by the city's court service on Saturday and Sunday showed 154 people had been given jail time of up to 14 days for violating Russia's strict anti-protest laws. Yes, such an enlightened country they are. Rights groups and independent media outlets reported a handful of similar sentences in other cities across the country. The 47-year-old Kremlin critic died on Friday at the Arctic prison colony, where he was being held on charges widely seen as retribution for his having the temerity to have campaigned against President Vladimir Putin. Isn't it interesting? All the people who ever challenged Putin end up in one of two categories. Both of them end up dead, but in one category, it's dead by poisoning. In another category, it's dead by having been shoved out of a high window. They either get poisoned or they fall to their death from an open window. Police and men in plain clothes patrolled sites in dozens of Russian cities where people had gathered to commemorate his memory over the weekend. There were several reports of them removing the pop-up memorials overnight, and footage show hooded men scooping up flowers and putting them in a bin and bags on a bridge next to the Kremlin. The news of Navalny's death, which came just a month before Putin is set to secure another 6-year term in the Kremlin, triggered an outpouring of grief and anger among his supporters at home and abroad. Russian authorities had still not given Navalny's mother or lawyers access to his body on Sunday, enraging his backers who had earlier called the Russian state's killers, trying to cover their tracks. And that appears to be exactly what they are. And then here, what are we doing? Joe Biden is considering weighing his options for the U.S. response. Biden told reporters on Monday he's considering additional sanctions. Well, boy, I bet you Putin is just shaking in his boots about that. What do you think happens when he's saying it's not about hurting Navalny, all the stuff he says to rationalize the treatment of Navalny, and that he dies in prison? It's about trust. It's about their ability to influence other nations in a positive way. On Friday afternoon, they swiftly blamed the Kremlin for the death of Putin's most outspoken critic, but they're still considering what they might do. Now listen, relationships between us and Russia have always been sort of complicated. We've had moments where, we made progress, and we have had more recently a lot of moments where we went backwards. I just want to say this one more time. The reason that Putin feels like he can get away with this stuff is because he perceives our leadership as being very weak. And he's right. He's absolutely right about that. But, threatening to launch nuclear weapons against us if any effort is taken to reclaim the land that Russia has taken from Ukraine is a scary prospect and notes one of the lowest points of our relationship in some considerable time. 50 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. Imagine what you could do or how you would feel if your loved ones had no pain. If you or your loved ones had no pain. Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley can lead you to a pain-free life. For the month of February, the Wellness Institute of Nashville is offering life-changing, non-surgical spinal decompression at 50% off. This means payments may be as low as $30. Just call 615-246-5009 to set up your consultation. And what will happen is Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley will review an advanced report of findings with you and review any previous MRIs in detail. They often find things that other folks have missed. They will decide which of their new age technologies is the best fit for you. Besides the non-surgical spinal decompression, they have robot laser and knee decompression for those with knee ailments. And remember, it's 50% off non-surgical spinal decompression for all new patients. That's cheaper than most of your insurance copays in many cases. So call Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley to set up your consultation today at 615-246-5009. I'm Brian Wilson, and the Wellness Institute of Nashville has my personal stamp of approval. Call them today. Again, the number, 615-246-5009. Learn more at painisbad.com.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Mr. Gorbachev.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what...
knocked